Okay.
Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Esra Akbas, and she will be talking about graph machine learning and application to biomedicine. Please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm an assistant professor in the computer science department at Georgia State University. And my research area is graph machine learning. And today I will talk about that. I want to introduce this domain and also some applications to biomedicine that we are working on. So it's about the relations actually, that we have the relations everywhere in the world. We are all connected to each other. So we cannot imagine a world that we don't have any friends, or that the roads never intersect, information never flows between individuals, or like this type of conferences, researchers and scientists never collaborate, right? We all have to do this. We have all these in our life. So our life is completely defined by the connections. So if we have these complex systems and there are complex networks here, so when we look at these examples like connections between neurons or interactions between genes and the proteins, and we have family-friend relationship in humans or in animals, and friendships in social media, collaboration in academia, all these creates complex networks. All these different types of relations create complex networks in our life. And in a formal definition, networks, the graphs are structured data representing relationship between objects. It helps us to model the sophisticated structures and their interactions. So in our network or graphs, we have a set of vertices and a set of edges, as we see in this figure. So the dot points are the nodes or our vertices, and we have connection between them as the edges between them. So as I said, in social networks, when we define these networks, so each users will be our nodes, and their connections, friendship or collaboration relationship will be their links between them. Or in a communication network, like we have sent emails or we call our friends, all these will create connections between us. Or in computer networks, we all are connected to each other. And in biological networks, all the biological items are affecting to each other. So these are the different kinds of networks. So what about the complex network? When we look at these, just this looks simple, but we can create more complex networks. Like in Twitter, instead of just defining the users, we can define different types of nodes on Twitter. Like from the user perspective, we follow each other. So it creates one type of relations. User post a tweet, so we create another node type as a tweet. So, and even we can define different types of relation between them, like user post a tweet, like a tweet, or tweet can mention a user, and tweet can retweet itself to another tweets. And it may contain a topic that's also create another type. So we create this complex structure, and we call it as a heterogeneous network, not just one type of nodes. As user here, we have different types of nodes and different types of relations between them. In a co-authorship network, so we are co-author of a graph paper, but also there is a relation between the papers. They cite each other. They include different words. So when we all include these different types of information into one model, that will create more complex structures. And even for recommendation system, we use the knowledge graphs. That's many companies now use this. That's define different entities and the relation between them. Like for song, we have types as a genre. We have singer as another type. So with these all complex relations, we better do the recommendations for users. So, okay, we define these different networks. So how we will learn from that? We learn the patterns on these graphs. What is the patterns? How these connections appear, how they are coming, how they are changing. And based on these patterns, we make predictions for future. So how we do learn? We usually learn with the graph neural networks. We learn useful representations from graph. We represent them, all these complex information that's appearing in the graph. We represent them as a vector space, and then we use these representations for different tasks, like node classification. We try to predict some labels for the nodes. We try to predict some new links, new connections, or even we may have many graphs and we can classify them. So this is very emerging interdisciplinary field with a wide spectrum of applications. Like in social media, we can find communities. Like if we want to organize an event, who we need to invite. So we can find the communities who can like join an event, or we can detect events using social media posts or social media connections. If there is a big changing quickly, then that's the shows there will be something going on. Or we can, like every day, I believe you get some recommendation from LinkedIn or some social media account, like you can be a friend, you may know this person. Those kind of recommendations are the link prediction. Or in financial system, we can detect fraud as an anomaly detection, like if there is some changing on credit card usage. These are all connections and the changings on the network. And in biomedical domain, so we use these graph machine learning in healthcare and biomedical domain, and because there are complex interactions in this domain, many biomedical processes affect to each other, like drugs interact with proteins. So with that way it works and cure the disease. And this graph, as I showed, it's heterogeneous and complex. We can combine different various types of information in one model. Like in biomedical domain, we have genomic, we have clinical data, we have drug-related data. So we can combine all these different information in one model. And also we have machine learning part. So it's a predictive power. We have a powerful tool with analyzing these networks. We can make very useful prediction like drug efficiency or disease progression. So we can make prediction using these graph machine learning. What type of biological networks we have? Like as a simple network, we have protein-protein interaction network, like how they interact to each other, or disease network. As we know, like when we have some disease, it causes some other problems also, like our system all connected. So they are all connected. But when we look at all together in this domain, there is a very complex network. Each of them affect to each other. Like proteins, there is a relation between proteins, but there is also relation between protein and disease and drug. So this treatment is related to disease. Disease is related to virus. So there are symptoms. So we can define many different types of entities, and there are many connections between them. Using all these information in one model help us to make better prediction, better disease prediction, better treatment, and also designing better drugs. Like here in different applications, for drug discovery, we identify new drug candidates and predicting potential interactions also between drugs. We can predict patient outcomes, like how we'll be using electronic health records, what will be the next couple of years this patient will have the disease, or how their disease will continue or cure. And we can also do prediction on molecules, like the drugs are molecules. It includes atoms and the bonds as an edge between them. So itself, the molecules is a graph. So using these graph structure, we can do prediction. We can predict their chemical properties, or we can predict reactions of these molecules with the other one. And also we can understand the disease better and identify potential drugs better. So, and in this domain, what I develop novel graph models from the data. So there are some relations, and we also can define different types of relations. And for these different graph model, we define graph machine learning models and apply them to drug in different problems. Like these are some of them: drug interaction, sequence classification, and drug repurposing. I will introduce the drug interaction problem. Like, as we know, when sometimes we have to use the drugs together, and when we use them, they may interact and they may cause some side effects. Even this can be very dangerous. It may cause some death. But how we know that we can use it or not, it is not easy to test all these drug combination in a clinical environment, right? We cannot test everything in the lab, or we cannot just try on the user. So what we do, we use some computational models. The core idea here is we know that if similar drugs will interact with the same drug, so we need to define the similarity between them. How we can define this similarity? We use features of the drugs. So we need some feature sets. So these feature sets can be the other entities in this biological domain. We know that there are relations between these entities and also between the drug and this entity. So in our project, we use, in addition to drug, we use protein species, disease, pathways, and the chemical structure of the drug. And we combine all these information in our heterogeneous network. We define each one as an entity, and also we define different relations between them. Even like when we look at disease, a drug can cause a side effect, and also drug can cure a disease. So we have different relations between drug and disease. So after defining these relations, we need to define, as I said, we need to define similarity, right, between the drugs. How we will do that? On this network, if they are close, if two drugs close to each other, like if there is a path between two drugs, that shows their similarity. Like two drugs, if they share disease, if they cause the same disease, same side effects, or if they treat same disease, or if they target same protein. So we define different paths between the drugs. And then using these paths, we define the similarity, and we define graph neural network, heterogeneous attention network, as a deep learning model on these network and the metapaths. We call them as a metapaths. And using all these information, it's based on like how much paths there are between the drugs. We learn a representation for each drug. And then using these representations, we combine the representation of two drugs, and then we give it to another model as a predictor model, and it gives us that, yes, these two drugs will interact, or no, this will not interact. This is all will be based on their similarities, drug similarities, and this similarity is coming from those metapaths and those networks that we design. And with this way, we can predict novel interactions between drugs.
Last 3 minutes, Dr. Akbas.
Okay, let's just couple minute slides. So the problem in this domain is, as I showed, we need many information, but for new drugs, we don't have all these available. So in our another project, we just use molecular structure, and so we look at that. If they share similar substructures as a molecule, then they will be similar, the drugs will be similar. And like a sentence, when we look at the sentence, the text, if they share many words, they will be similar. So we use this idea for the molecular structure, which is the SMI strings of the drug. And we define their similarity based on these substructures, and we create the graph. And on these graph, we develop a hypergraph neural network and make prediction. And still we are able to predict well with this drug interaction even without using those many information. Of course, those information provide us many like extra, but if you don't have, still with these graph models can help us to make predictions for drug representation, like drug interaction. And this is another project, but we don't have time. Like we can use also for drug repurposing, like available drugs can be used to for other disease, new disease, like with the COVID-19. We see that like developing a new drug takes time. So we use the available drugs for that new disease. That's we can get at least some candidates. We cannot say, of course, these models will predict everything and we don't need any doctor or not. Just that these are some predictions. We are decreasing the candidates to small sets so they can test on the lab and then they can find better and quick solutions. So as a conclusion, this graph machine learning is an emerging interdisciplinary field with many applications. And with this model, we can combine different types of information into same model. And so in biomedical domain, we can represent them as a network. And with this predictive power of graph machine learning, we can make predictions and for human health and in the health domain, make it more faster. And I think that's all. Any questions?
Any questions, any comments?
I think what you're doing is existing structures you are comparing, but it's also possible to use generative AI ideas in terms of generating new drugs or finding out a drug that's not existing yet.
I cannot hear you.
Oh, yeah, I was just asking, I think right now what you're presenting is most likely the existing structures, right? You're comparing or trying to repurpose them. It's like, what I'm asking is today, all day we were talking about the generative AI here. Is it possible to generate new structures, new drugs that might be a cure for certain things, or at least a number of candidates we can generate?
Yes, actually, yeah. Now they are not just these models not use just the available drugs. So there are some models that creates new molecules, like predict some new molecules that will work on disease. Yeah, that's also possible, and many studies are going on that.